Wake up, YouTube. Welcome back to the Bubba Continuum. I changed the name of my channel. I probably mentioned this before. It was Bubba. I had Bubba Continuum as the name of the channel. And the reason I didn't call it the Bubba Continuum was that it's hard to search for things when they start with TAG. If someone subscribes to your channel and they have a lot of subscriptions, they're going to go through like 50 channels that say THE at the beginning of them. So if you take that out, then you might have some chance of being found, when people are trying to find you. But what I found that people thought my name was Bubba. They started calling me Bubba in comments. So I'm not Bubba. I am a Bubba. A Bubba is a person who uses tools sometimes to disastrous effect. Someone who tries to put a scope on a gun and then ends up having to buy a new one. So anyway, changed the name of the channel. What else is going on? It's just a spectacular day. It's just a wonderful, beautiful. First of all, the weather's magnificent. It's like in the high 60s, dry, a little breeze. Last year at this time, it was probably 95 and sweaty and no air. So it's a beautiful day, and I've been getting stuff done. I have a utility cart. Like any decent Southerner, if you're a Southerner, you do not walk to the mailbox. You get in your utility cart, your four-wheeler, whatever it is, and you drive to the mailbox. Everywhere you go, you put your AK-47 or your AR-15 and in the rack on your cart, and you take off. So I've got this cart, and I use it for everything. I use it when I go out and I shoot in the pasture, and I use it when I do yard work. Put leaves in it or whatever. It's got a dump bed. And I tried to start it a couple of days ago, and it just wouldn't do anything. And so I went through the agony of taking the carburetor off, and I ran it through the sonic cleaner, which surprisingly did not help. It turned out that I guess it's the main jet. It must be the main jet because it's the biggest jet on the carburetor. Was clogged up with corrosion, and you know why that is? It's because water was in it. And where did the water come from? Ethanol fuel. And where does ethanol fuel come from? Liberals. It's a gigantic boondoggle. It's bad for the environment. It's bad for food prices. It jacks up food prices. It ruins engines. I mean, it makes a mess out of engines and cars. Doesn't save us money. Anyway, ethanol attracts water, and water causes corrosion. So my sonic cleaner, which is wonderful for carburetors ordinarily, wouldn't touch this thing. And what I had to do, this is a good thing you might want to know. Citric acid is great for cleaning things that are corroded. I use it to clean casings when I do reloading. It eats all the stuff off of brass, or some people say it doesn't actually eat the stuff. It reduces it, which turns oxidation back into brass. I don't know, but it makes it nice and shiny and clean. And it's also a good thing to put in your dishwasher, as long as you're careful what it's in there with. So I made myself a bucket of citric acid solution, and I threw my shower head into it because it was getting clogged up. And I also threw this thing from the golf cart into it. And after a tremendous amount of work and a lot of bumbling, I got it cleared up. But the sad thing is, while I was doing this, I took the carburetor apart, and carburetors have a bowl full of gasoline, and there's a float in the bowl that it opens a valve that lets gasoline in, and these bowls and floats and things get screwed up. So I tried to take the bowl out of this carburetor, and it was stuck. The pin that held it in was in there way too tight. They don't need to be tight. There's no reason for them to be tight. And so I was beating on it with a punch, trying to drive it out. And there's these two little posts that the pin goes through, and they're made out of cheese, some kind. They call it aluminum, but it looks like pot metal to me. So I was beating on this thing, and one of these posts snapped off, and I just gasped. All the air left my lungs. Because out of all the things that I could conceivably fix on this golf cart, putting a pot metal post back together inside a carburetor was not among them. I tried. I knew it wouldn't work, but I tried making a big glob of solder around it. I thought that might do something. And I ordered a Chinese car. I went to eBay and ordered a Chinese carb for $14. Why didn't I order an Easy-Go carb, which is a carburetor for a Subaru engine that comes in it? Well, because they're like $130 and they're worth $13. So I ordered a Chinese carburetor, which is essentially the same thing. I mean, I've ordered a ton of Chinese carbs, and the quality is exactly like the ones that you get for $130 or whatever it is. because they're probably made in the same factory. So I don't understand a tenfold or ninefold differential between the prices. I think that's a little too much for me. I mean, I hate to help China build aircraft carriers and all that, but come on, man. I feel like Joe Biden. Come on, man, clown. So anyway, I got some epoxy and I put it around the base of this little pole and held it in place, and I kept globbing more and more epoxy onto it, because gasoline will not bother epoxy, so it's okay to soak it in gasoline. It'll if I could get it to stay on there, the gasoline wouldn't be a problem, and there's very little stress put on this part. And believe it or not, it held. So I'll put a picture of it up. I've got these two little posts, and one has got this big glob of epoxy down at the base of it, and I put it in my cart, and it ran. So now I can wait for my Chinese carb to arrive, and I don't have to stress. I can go out and get the mail. I don't have to be a pedestrian or take the pickup or one of the tractors. So I did that. I'm sorry about this noise I'm making, coughing and stuff. I ate ribs today, and I don't know. There's something about spicy ribs that just wakes up your lungs and everything, but it's great. I guess maybe too much cayenne, I guess. So what else did I do? I put a new transmission in my Makita cordless drill. There I go again. I didn't even know drills had transmissions. I was using it to drill holes in a stump. I removed the stump in my yard, and I was left with this 3-foot wide, it's still a stump, but now it's a 6-inch high stump. And I said, well, I'll drill it out. I'll drill holes in it so it'll rot faster, and so I can put chemicals in it and stuff. And I got a 1-inch auger, and I started just reaming this thing out, and I popped the screw that holds the chuck in the transmission of the drill. And these are left-hand screws, and they're really difficult to get out once they're wedged in there. And I bubbed it up. So I ordered a new transmission. I said, you know what, it's $60 and life is short. So I ordered a new transmission, and I put that in today, and that was neat. So now my drill is back. And the final thing I did that was really cool was I put a new trigger in my Ruger Precision rifle. I've got a Ruger Precision rifle in 6.5 Creedmoor, and it's just neat. It's just spectacular, I shot it the other day, and the worst group I got was like 1.2 inches. 5-round group. I don't believe in 3-round groups. That's just, anybody can get a good group with 3 rounds. So I shot a bunch of groups with it, 4 or 5-round groups, and all of them were like 0.75 inches or less, except for one which opened up due to a flyer. It's really weird when your flyers open your group up to 1.2 inches. You're shooting pretty well. So that was great. I got that working. I got my Timney trigger in. I'm told that you can fix the trigger in the Ruger Precision rifle by removing. There's a spring that makes it harder to pull, and I'm told that you can either cut that spring or you can pull it out. I was going to do that. I thought, you know what? I do that kind of stuff all the time. I'm going to go first class this time, and I spent a ton on a Timney trigger. I think it was $240. I just said, I'm going to die soon, so I'm going to be sitting on a big pile of cash, and I'm going to have this Bubba trigger when I could have the real thing. Just once I'm going to buy a real trigger that costs a lot of money. So it's 8 ounce. It's 2 stages, 8 ounces and 1 pound. It takes 8 ounces to pull it back to where it's set, and then 1 pound to go past that. And it ought to be great. I'm dying to use it. And now I can use it because I can put it in the cart and go out. I found out the cart wasn't working because I put my 204 Ruger rifle in the cart to go shooting, and it wouldn't go anywhere. So I still got to try that one out because I did cut the spring in that one, and it feels magnificent. I haven't tried it though. So it's been a good day. I've gotten a lot of stuff done. Very happy with myself, and it's made this is my indoor workshop, my gun room, and it's more of a mess than usual because I've been doing this stuff. I was using my bench over there, and I had to move a bunch of junk to this bench, and it's worse than it usually is. So I did all this stuff, and then I had ribs from my new smoker. I don't know if I put up pictures of the ribs yet. They were too dark. They had too much cayenne on them. I put too much wood in the smoker, and they still blew away anything you can get around here. And this is a good barbecue area. The worst barbecue around here is a chain called Sonny's, and Sonny's is very good. So you may wonder why I would buy a smoker. The idea of paying someone else to smoke meat for me, it's repugnant. I guess it's a Southern thing. I'm getting more and more Southern. I used to live in Miami, and one of the things I hated about Miami was that it eroded my Southernness day after day after day after day until it was almost gone. And I moved up here, and I'm surrounded by Southerners, and I'm technically in. I mean, Miami, people say, oh, Miami's a Southern city. It's in the South. No, it's geographically in the South. It has nothing to do with the South. And I mean, it used to be a Southern city many years ago, up until maybe 1905. And after that, things changed. So I love living up here. I mean, how can you beat it? I'm shooting stuff in my backyard and smoking meat and doing all this stuff with tools and riding around in my cart. I go to this barber shop where all the magazines are about shooting or fishing, and nobody wears a mask, and we sit around and we criticize masks. I just love it. And speaking of masks, Trump is in the hospital today. How can I be having a good day when our fearless leader is in the hospital? Well, I'll tell you how. Because I saw a video his doctor put up, Dr. Conley, and he said Trump has not been using oxygen. He has had no fever for the last 24 hours, and his symptoms have been limited to a fever and fatigue and a stuffy nose. And he said he's doing great. And he was talking to these journalists, which means, of course, liberals. And I'll tell you something about journalists. They're extremely lazy. They're like buzzards. You know how buzzards find food? They look for other buzzards that have already found food. And that's exactly how... Sometimes I think when Jesus said, when the buzzards are gathered, that's where you'll find the body. The Bible uses a Hebrew word which doesn't necessarily mean eagles. People translate it as eagles, but it can also mean buzzards. So journalists are very lazy. They don't do much work. They just try to find out what other journalists are writing about, and then they say the same things those other journalists are saying. And when they talk about President Trump or anyone on the conservative side, they're lazier still. They just find the first negative thing someone has said and they parrot it. Like they say the Proud Boys, say it's a racist organization. Okay, the guy who runs the organization is black, is a black Cuban, like quasi-black. The guy who started the organization married a full-blooded Indian, a real Indian, not one of these fake 132nd Indians. That cracks me up. You can get money for that. Now this lady's a full-blooded American Indian, and he has 3 children who are half Indian. So if he's a white supremacist, he can't even pull it off in his own family. How's he supposed to inflict it on the rest of us? Anyway, I'm not saying I support the Proud Boys. It's not a Christian organization, and a lot of things they believe are silly. But they're not terrorists. They're not white supremacists. Come on. Anyway, people in the press, they just repeat whatever they hear. All they care about is shaping opinions, not informing people. But today, they did some work because they talked to Trump's doctor, and they were doing everything they could to try to find some way to get the doctor to say that Trump was going to die, or that he was really sick, or that his lungs were damaged. And they're saying, have you tried this treatment? Have you tried that treatment? Can you give us his blood pressure? Things that I've read a lot about coronavirus, and they talked about stuff that I had not even heard of. And it was obvious that they had been sitting around on Google all morning, that they had really researched this, trying to find some way to get this doctor to say that Trump was in real trouble because Trump was the guy who called coronavirus a hoax, which never happened. He used the word hoax with regard to the way Democrats and liberal journalists were talking about it, but not the disease itself. Anyway, it was really, really something to watch. They were just so eager to hear something bad, and this doctor essentially said Trump has a runny nose, and he says he expects things to continue the way they are. And he said other things that really upset him. I think he said his blood pressure is like between 110 and 120. Which for somebody who's, Trump's technically obese, he's got a body mass index of like 30.4, which means you're just, a little bit on the heavy side, but technically it's obesity. The dividing line is 30. So it was really something watching these people dig and dig and dig, and I just had to ask myself, well, why don't they do this? What a great world it would be if they did this when it came to false information about the president and about conservatives and about Christianity and about Israel. What if they dug this hard to find out the truth? So it's very sad, but it's wonderful to see that Trump's doing well. And there's people standing outside the hospital praying for him and trying, they want, excuse me, they want him to, I guess they want him to come out and say hi or something. It's just a great day because it looks like things are going very, very well. I pray for him all the time. I speak defeat to the spirits that are trying to take him. I speak God's blessings over him, and I hope you're doing the same thing. Because Christians can bless and curse. We have that power. The reason I was gonna make this video today. I made a video yesterday and I put it up, and I thought I better take that down because I wasn't too happy with the tone of it. I was talking about Biden and how amazed I was that he got nominated. I said he was like the Fredo Corleone or the Gilligan of the Democratic Party. And those things are true. I think that's a fair comment. You know, Fredo Corleone was the guy in the Corleone family who couldn't get it together. You know, he was the guy who was a little bit of an embarrassment. They put him in charge of managing a hotel, and Mo Green, who owned the hotel, pimp slapped him in front of the other employees because he was sleeping with the waitresses. That's the kind of guy Fredo was. You've seen the movie, and if you've seen Gilligan's Island, you know what Gilligan was like. And Joe Biden, sources have said that in like 2015 or maybe early 2016, Obama and Hillary sat Biden down and said, "You're not getting the nomination." And the reason was they knew he was the Fredo/Gilligan of the party. They knew from past performance when Biden had run for president in the past. He had been soundly rejected by everybody because everybody knew Joe Biden was a horrible liar and that he wasn't very smart. He graduated somewhere down around the 15th percentile in his law school class at an undistinguished law school, Syracuse, not a great law school. And you don't have to be that smart to be a lawyer anyway. So he's not the brightest guy on earth, and his accomplishments are very meager. So it's remarkable that this guy got nominated. It amazes me. And I put up a picture of Gilligan, which I shouldn't have done. So I decided I'll try to take something a little bit closer to the high road today and be a little bit nicer. I mean, I think my remarks were sound, but I didn't need to put that picture up. And I keep speaking defeat to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the spirits that are trying to get them elected. I curse them with defeat all the time. And of course, I also pray for these two people and their families to be saved and to repent and all that. But you know, Paul said we war against spirits, principalities and powers, wickedness in high places. So I'm trying to focus on that. Do whatever I can to keep Biden out of the office and keep our friend, our beloved President Trump in there. I even got a hat. I got myself my first MAGA hat. I said to myself, if you're not brave enough to wear a MAGA hat in this county, then there's no hope for you. Wearing it here is like wearing it at a Trump family reunion. I feel kind of weird wearing a political hat because politics are carnal, and I don't like to get too much into it. But Trump is such a great friend of Israel, a great friend of the unborn, a great friend of Christians. You got to support this guy. Everybody's so upset about what he says. You know, the American people are like women now. When it comes to interpersonal relationships, women judge people by what they say, which is why women are so easy to fool and get pregnant. And men tend to judge people more by what they do. And if you look at what Trump has done, it's tremendous. And you look at what he says, well, you know, sometimes it's a little disturbing. But you got to go by what the man has done. I mean, he's been nominated 3 times for the Nobel Peace Prize, and unlike Barack Obama, he's actually done something to deserve it. So I like Trump. I hope he does well. What I wanted to talk about today was rapture dreams. I had a dream years ago, and I had this dream more than once. I had this dream where I died in a car crash. And it didn't occur to me until a couple of days ago that it might actually be a rapture dream, so I just wanted to put it out there. They say if you dream something over and over again, it may be because God's sending it to you, and I feel like this one probably came to me from God. I was driving a Ford Explorer. My dad used to own an old green Ford Explorer, and I was driving this Explorer down I-95 in Miami. It's the big highway that goes down the middle of Miami. And I was on an overpass sort of a thing, some kind of a thing that went way up. There's a bunch of these things right in the center of Miami, and some of them are pretty high, but this one was abnormally high. It was like, 700 to 1,000 feet high. So I was driving along with this thing, and I think my friend Mike may have been in the car, and this was probably like 2016. So I'm driving along, and suddenly the road just ends abruptly. It's just gone. There's no warning, there's no sign, there's no orange cones, and I'm out in space in this car. The car starts to rotate. It goes like this because, the front wheels drop off first, and that starts the car rotating. So it rotates downward, and the first thing you know, I'm looking forward through the windshield, Now, what do I see? I see the ground coming up at me. And it's weird because the ground is mostly green. It's like there's some little highways in it and roads, but basically it's like a little patch of rural ground someplace, which is weird because there's not that much green in Miami. You know, there's green in between the strips of pavement, but it's not rural. So I'm headed toward the ground, and I really thought I was dying. I wasn't aware that I was dreaming. And the thing about it is I wasn't afraid at all, not at all. But I had a very powerful sense of the moment of the occasion. It was an extremely important, serious time because I was on my way out. And whatever there was left for me to do on earth, well, you know, I was going to have to forget about it. And I was praying and trying to make sure that I was forgiven, but I wasn't afraid. And I was thinking, I'm going to see Jesus. I'm going to be in this place where there's no conflict, where everybody thinks the way I do, where people are good to each other, where there's no age, there's no illness, no accidents, no pain. Finally free of this place, finally free of this earth. And I was really looking forward to it. So I kept plummeting, and at some point before I hit the ground, or maybe when I hit the ground, I don't recall hitting the ground, but I know that I died. And for years I thought this was just a dream that was intended to show me that death was nothing to be afraid of. And it did teach me that. It taught me that I'm not afraid of death at all. I'm afraid of suffering. I'm afraid of, being burned to death or something like that, but or having cancer for 5 years. Excuse me. Or having parts amputated. But I'm not at all afraid of death. It doesn't scare me in the least. I've had this experience that I've talked about where a couple of times I felt something in my chest, like maybe from acid indigestion while I was lying in bed at night. And I thought, that's kind of weird. I wonder if there's something going on that I don't know about. Maybe this is it. And when those things have happened to me, I refuse to pray for healing. I refuse to pray for God not to take me because I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. I really enjoy life, but I don't know. I guess that's like saying that you're like a happy American who's a tourist in Mumbai. You're in a miserable place. You're happy because you're an American, and Americans have blessed lives, but you're living in a rotten place full of hate and disease and poverty and so forth. So I guess that's how I feel. This world is not my home, and there's a much, much better place. So I'm not afraid of death at all. I don't want to look forward to death. You should love. I'm not going to say you should love life because Jesus said if you love your life, you lose it. But I think it's not. I think if you're a Christian and you're not enjoying your life, it means something's wrong because we're supposed to be blessed. Well, how does this thing relate to the rapture? This dream. Well, I felt that. I thought about this the other day, and I felt that I got this revelation that the road represented the path that God gives people. It wasn't a surface street. It was above the surface. And if you're on an expressway, what it means is you don't have to fight with everybody else. You don't have to fight with people who are trying to go 2 blocks to the drugstore. You're spared a lot of aggravation, and you move quickly, and you make good progress, and stress is taken off of you. And that's what it's like being a Christian. When you're blessed, your life goes well, you're kind of lifted above the fray. You're lifted above, people tend to be, carnal people tend to be kind of like ants in a jar, climbing on top of each other. And you're lifted above that, and things go well for you. So I sort of felt that's what the elevated highway represented. And I felt like the sudden end to the highway, that just represented the fact that when it's time for us to go in the rapture, it's going to be very abrupt. Jesus said it wouldn't take his children by surprise the way it would other people. It wouldn't sneak up on us like a thief in the night. And people say Jesus doesn't know the time. Nobody can know the time. And I don't know if that's exactly correct because that was true 2,000 years ago. But sooner or later, Jesus is going to know the time, and there's no reason to believe that other people can't. So it may be that he will choose to reveal the time, but I don't think he'll say it's going to be at 4:15 tomorrow afternoon. Maybe he'll give us a date. I really don't see him making it so clear that you're gonna be able to say, well, I'm going to sit down in this chair because the rapture's half an hour from now. I'd be surprised if that was going to happen. I still keep feeling like December is the month, and as I said before, it's not like God handed me a scroll and wrote December 11th through the 24th on it. So I'm not swearing anything. People say, "Oh, you're saying the rapture is going to happen this time or that time." I'm not saying that. I'm saying I have a very powerful feeling that it's going to happen. Other people have been wrong, and sometimes I'm wrong about these impressions that I have. But this one doesn't seem to be going away. I'll say that. I hope anyone who listens to these things. I'll tell you what I've been saying to people lately. Excuse me. People have been commenting and so forth and talking to me, and what I tell them is, do me a favor. When we go, and we're at the marriage of the Lamb in heaven, find me, tap me on the shoulder, and say hi. It's me. Just say hi. You know, so we can remember that we were brought together on earth over the internet. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So I hope if you're watching this video, you'll turn to God, you'll be filled with the Holy Spirit, you'll pray in tongues a lot. Prayer in tongues is for everybody. I know people say it's not because they haven't been able to get the gift, and they don't realize there are things that block that. You know, there's unforgiveness or various sins that they're holding on to. But it is for everybody. There's very clear references to it, even throughout the Old Testament. And I'm talking about symbolic references. I'm not saying the Old Testament says you will pray in tongues, but it refers to living water, and there's all sorts of symbolic references to it. It'll help you. It'll fill you with revelation. If you're not doing it, it's like having your GPS turned off. So I really say try to get into it. Try to get correction from God. Don't sit around saying, give me a car, give me a boyfriend, give me a house. I mean, of course you should ask God for good things, but ask Him for correction. Ask Him to fill you with revelation. Try to be ready, because not everyone who says I'm a Christian is going to go. And I guarantee you, a lot of the televangelists that we're all familiar with, they're going to be right here on earth when it's all over with. Promise you. I guess that's all I got to say. I talked a lot, not as much as yesterday. If this thing actually comes to pass, I look forward to being with you. And I look forward to seeing you. Like I said to the other people, say hi to me in heaven. I hope you'll pray for Donald Trump. And I hope you'll pray for Biden and Harris to lose. But also, and for the spirits that are pushing them to be broken. But also, you know, we should pray for them, for these two people and their families to be saved, to have their eyes open, because they're way out there. I mean, anyone who thinks that tearing an unborn baby apart while it's in the womb, or cutting its neck with scissors while it's dangling outside of its mother, anyone who thinks that's okay for any reason other than self-defense, you know, on rare occasions when the mother's life is really in danger, that's a sickness. That is a real sickness. That's a supernatural blindness. And nobody should have to go to their grave with that sin, still carrying that. Well, that's it. I'm going to go, and if my golf cart falls apart, I guess I'll come back and let you know. Peace out.